Child's pose is a lovely posture that is found in almost every single yoga class I have taken. I also oftentimes give it to patients as a way to stretch through their lumbar spine, stretch through their pelvic floor. But oftentimes I find that people struggle getting into that posture for a variety of reasons. So please explore through all of the modifications offered in this video. We even have a seated version of how you can explore and access child's pose, but in a way that is safe and serving to your body. Find your deep breathing or relaxed breath throughout these postures and enjoy. Now I'm going to cover several options of how to do child's pose. This is one of my favorite poses because it really allows us to kind of flex, turn inward. It allows for some nice opening through our pelvic floor, but oftentimes it's challenging for people to get into. So one of the first areas of concern people can have when getting into this pose is the amount of knee flexion that's required. This oftentimes can be quite uncomfortable for people. So simply taking a folded blanket, you can place this right behind the knees, and now suddenly I don't have as much flexion through there. The nice option about this is I can take away folds or even add folds. So maybe I need something that's even more, and now suddenly I'm not getting that aggressive flexion through here, so it can take that strain off of the knee. Maybe you have one knee that can manage the flexion and one that can't. I still recommend keeping the pose even through both in this scenario. The next modification, I'm gonna leave this towel roll here so you can see it when I get into that full flexion of the pose, is using a bolster. These are pretty inexpensive online. So what I'm doing here is my knees are separated and I'm bringing that bolster kind of right between my thighs. Now I can go ahead and hold the bolster with my hands, flex forward, turning my head to the side. Now, when I use the bolster, I'm elevating my chest, or I'm bringing the floor to me. This is a really good modification for anyone who doesn't like the pinching they're feeling through the front of their hips. Maybe it's too much forward bend on their back. So sometimes when I'm really feeling like I don't have the flexibility that I'm desiring that day, I will put a bolster and the blanket here. Then I can bend forward and really relax down through that. So let me show you and just kind of rest into the pose for a moment. Now the nice thing here with this is maybe once I do a few breaths with my head turned to one side, I'm gonna go ahead and wanna turn my head to the other side to do some few breaths. One other modification that this towel can be or blanket can be really helpful for is the other tricky part. Some people's ankles do not like this much extension, okay? Or plantar flexion for that matter. So again, love my blankets here. You can go ahead and just get a nice roll. Okay, then I'll go ahead and just kind of crawl over. Now, I'm still in the pose, but you can see my ankles have not as much of this position, more here. Now I can still widen my knees, put that bolster here, and fold forward. So those are how you do the pose with these different props. Now, if you're able to get into this pose and you don't need the props, I'm gonna show you how to do that. So here, we're going ahead. I like to put my big toes together, and then I like to widen my knees. How wide I go with my knees really just depends on what I feel for that day. Sometimes I like my knees a little bit closer. That allows to give more support through this torso area of my body. Sometimes I like my knees a bit wider out. Today I'm going to go ahead and do a wider pose. Then once I go ahead and I bend forward, the point is we're wanting to create a nice curve through our back. Oftentimes people get into this pose, they maybe have their knees really wide and they end up kind of extending through here. So we don't want that. So make sure your knees are close enough that they support your abdomen. Then we go ahead, bend forward, and you can place your arms out in front of you like this, or I prefer something a bit gentler like this. If this is at all uncomfortable for your shoulders or you need modification here, maybe you need a little bit more support for your neck, you can put one hand on top of the other, or you could maybe even do a fist. And then lastly, you could bring your arm all the way down next to you on each side and then rest down. Here's a great opportunity to practice your nice, slow, deep breathing. And as you're breathing in, you can really feel your abdomen expand against your thighs. And I like that because it almost blocks our abdomen from coming forward and allows for some more stretching and motion through that back side of our body, which oftentimes can get sticky. So there are your prone child's pose modifications. Child's pose can also be done in a chair. This is a great modification if your knees cannot handle any type of aggressive or end range flexion. So in the chair, you're gonna go ahead, keeping the ankles nicely positioned underneath our knees. You just simply flex forward, bringing your rib cage to your thighs, and then you can place your elbows kind of right towards the end of our knees and rest our head right into our palms. As we rest here, we're really focusing on that curve from the top of our head gently all the way down to our tailbone. We don't want to go into extension like this. Just that nice curve. If this feels good to you, or you're okay maybe feeling a bit more restriction with your breath, you can go ahead and fully fold forward, letting your head go ahead and relax and dangle down. Oftentimes here I like to shake my head a little bit just to make sure I'm not holding any tension. While I'm in this position, I want to try to relax my thighs, not squeezing my knees together, but gently letting them release. This is a nice option for child's pose, depending on what your office space looks like. I've even had some people who, instead of resting their head onto their hands like this, they'll simply rest their head onto their desk here. My only concern with this is always making sure we're not getting extension through our spine. We want a nice, gentle rounding. So go ahead and try those different versions out for sitting.